Okay. We are 5 minutes late, but we still have plenty of time. Our next keynote speaker is Dr. Qin Xiao. I don't think I need to have a very extensive introduction to him, but I just want to mention one thing. Now he's the president of the Boyuan Foundation. Boyuan Foundation is becoming a leading think tank in China and is organizing a lot of policy dialogues and becoming very influential in China's policy circles. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Qin Xiao to give us the keynote speech on the new leadership in China.
Good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. Nice to be back. I missed the last meeting last year. I'm coming back. I was asked to address this speech entitled "The New Leadership." It's a very interesting topic, but interesting for private talking, not for public speech. I'm supposed to be the team leader from the Chinese side, but during my absence, they made the decision, not me. First of all, it's a big uncertainty, a lot of uncertainty, difficult to make some firm conclusion, and be careful to make some conclusion before you have some evidence. Secondly, it took time, is too short to reach the conclusion. And as economists, we always talking about, I think I say similar words, what should be rather than what going to be. So let's talk in that. Yeah, I'll talk 4 or 6 parts, starting from the situation now we are now, China at the juncture. The debut of China's new leader following the 18th Party Congress marks the start of a 5 to 10 years political cycle. At the same time, China's 30 years of rapid economic growth has reached a turning point due to the change in some fundamental factors and endogenous problem, which means China will enter a new era of economic development. China's modernization process has come to a juncture. On the one hand, problems accumulated over a long period of time have resulted in economic slowdown and built up social tension. On the other hand, institutional reform can lead fresh impotence to economic growth and social progress. People are concerned about whether the nation's new leader will be able to recognize the problems and the challenges China now facing from an institutional point of view and find ways to solve this problem. So that's part 2 about the course of reform. In as little as 2 months, China's new leader have sent many positive signals of change, which include reaffirm Deng Xiaoping's idea of opening and reform, promising cooperative partnership with the U.S., strengthening the anti-corruption measures, and aiming to improve people's livelihood and a change in leadership style. This shows they are aware of the inability of the current system to support sustainable economic growth, as well as the tension between the government and the public due to a lack of fairness and justice. However, in order to reach deeper understanding and wider consensus, and to come up with specific policies, constraints from traditional ideologies and special interest groups will have to be overcome. Although reform may not be inevitable and established trend, we have reasons to hope for it. This hope isn't based on the assumption that there will be another Deng Xiaoping among the new leaders, but on the possibility of their rational judgment and correct decision to respond to the public pressure and unsustainable economic growth model. That is to say, politicians' willingness and determination to reform largely depends on the public pressure and unsustainability of the economic growth model. In this sense, rather than focusing on their new leadership's personnel characteristics, such as background, experiences, preferences, etc., we should focus on the fundamental problems in China and their possible consequences. So let's talk about the unsustainability of the traditional growth model. First, we must we discuss about the structural change of some external factors. Number one, we must face up the challenge of middle income trap to conduct the transformation from a growth model driven by large-scale factor inputs to a model characterized by technological innovation. Professor Lin Yifu said about this later developed advantages to catch up. I think that allow you a certain stage, in a due stage, either you can use the experiences, some per head GDP or the other index shows you must convert from a catch-up to an innovation. That's need the support of human resources and need the support of your system, including the economic one, particularly need marketing incentive for innovation. Secondly, the advent of Lewis turning point as an annual growth of urbanization rate will slow from 1.45 percentage point to 0.8 percentage point in the next 5 years. That's figure. First one, 1.45 is 11th 5 years plan. That's we experienced. And the second one, 0.8 is the plan for the 12th 5 years plan. Maybe a little bit higher than the 0.8, but you would say the dramatic decline. Third, demographic dividends diminishing as China's approaching aging society. China is expected to see a declining in working age population growth by 2015. By that time, nearly 10% of the population will be over 65 years of age. Additionally, the growth model with the emphasis on the scale and the speed faces constraints regarding the environment, resources, and energy. Finally, China's double-digit growth in export will be over, and the percentage of net export to GDP will fall below 2%, as the export-oriented economy faces constraints from balance of international payment for both buyers and sellers after global financial crisis. The above structural changes will have profound impact on the supply and demand of China's economy. On the supply side, the era of abundant and low-cost capital and labor, thanks to a high saving rate and cheap workforce provided by migrant workers, has come to an end, while total factor productivity is relatively low. On the demanding side, due to a global rebalancing, the investment and export-driven growth model will become untenable, while domestic demand and consumption will grow slowly. Let's shift to Indonesia's problem. While China's traditional economic growth model gradually loses support from external factors, its endogenous problems have also begun to emerge. These problems can be found in, first, low quality and structural imbalance despite rapid growth and large size of its economy. Second, widening income gap, growing corruption, and the lack of social equality and justice. These problems are rooted in a lock-in economic model in which special interest groups have gained both public power and capital as a result of a government-dominated economic system, which at the same time market-oriented reform is stagnant. The promotion of rule of law is insufficient, and there is a lack of public goods and services. So we need to achieve some consensus for the next decade. To establish a modern society has been the ultimate goal of China's reform and opening up since the later 1970s. The market system is an indispensable component of a modern society. The market-free trading system, however, requires the support of institutional infrastructure, including democracy, rule of law, protection of property rights, open and transparent information, clear boundary between the government and the market, etc. In this sense, China's market-oriented reform still has a long way to go. The promotion of rule of law and the new round of comprehensive reform in the political system and in social governance is inevitable. The traditional growth model, characterized by the government-dominated economy, used to play a positive role when China introduced the market-oriented reform and promoted industrialization. However, as the economy became more market-oriented, this model has led to various political, economic, social, and environmental conflicts because regulation on the price and trade under this model has distorted resources allocation, become an obstacle to trading and innovation, and led to a business-government collusion. The warning of the traditional economic growth model foreshadows the coming of a new era for China's economic development with an emphasis on quality, efficiency, balance, green initiatives, and fairness. The key to achieve this goal is to change the function of the government, which means the government's role must transform from a dominating economy to a role to provide public goods and services. Reform is more than just a concept renewal. It also means readjusting the distribution of benefits among multiple interest groups in society. China's current problem is that the government-dominated economy structure has led to the collusion of public power and capital, and hence special interest groups have been formed. In order to address this problem, we must harness a sense of responsibility among the elites together with the voice of the general public to push forward reform. The willingness and the determination of the politicians to reform is of utmost importance. We proposed the short-term or mid to short-term reform agenda consists of 12 points. One goal, let's talk in the goal of reform first. One goal of medium term, say 3 years reform, is to enhance and exemplify the fundamentals role of market in resources allocation in order to boost the quality and efficiency of economic development. The key is to establish a price mechanism based on market supply and demand, and corresponding fiscal and taxation system. Another goal is to achieve a better balance between economic and social development. That is to build a fiscal resources allocation system aiming to provide equal access to public services, to establish systems that ensure fair and equal opportunities of business startup, employment, social security, and income distribution, as well as to create a favorable ecological environmental. The whole range of reform could start with the deregulation of factor price and budget management system and the public sector, Here's the proposed 12 items for the reform agenda in the short term, 3 years' time. Number one, reform and deregulate the price system of resources, including minerals, energy, and some utility goods, to reach market equilibrium price. Two, achieving interest rate liberalization. Three, make RMB convertible under capital account. Four, increase share of fiscal expenditure on social security, healthcare, education, and the ratio of spending on the energy conservation and environmental protection to GDP. Five, reduce the share of fiscal expenditure on official consumptions. Six, changing business tax to value-added tax in the service sector. It just started. Number seven, lift resources tax or fee on minerals and start levying green taxes. 8, lower the micro tax burden, cut tax rate for individuals, require financial disclosure of senior officials. 9, lower import tax rate. 10, allocate a certain portion of stock of listed SOE to the social security net in order to narrow in the huge funding gap in the pension system in the middle to long term and accumulate experience for subsequent privatization of state-owned enterprise. Number 11, establish a full covered fiscal and budget management system, including general fiscal budget, budget of government-managed funds, and capital management budget of SOEs. Number 12, allow qualified local government to issue their own bonds, to reform the acquisition and development of rural land system in the urbanization process, make local government fiscal more transparent via the market mechanism. In order to ensure a smooth progress of the reform and to overcome constraints from special sectional interests, reform committee that transcends sectional interests should be formed to design the reform and supervise its implementation. Quantitative analysis shows the above reform can improve economic efficiency, achieve a more balanced economic development, and reverse the trend of growing income distribution disparity. At the same time, the costs of this reform are affordable. The risks are controllable. More importantly, this reform will lay the foundation for further deeper and more comprehensive reform. Short conclusion. A bright future despite the serious challenges. China has been the world's second largest economy after 30 years of high-speed economic growth. Many wonder when China can surpass U.S. in terms of both the size of economy and comprehensive national power. Of course, there are also pessimistic scholars who believe such a government-dominated economy growth is unsustainable because of the lack of rule of law and democratic constitutionalism. This reminds me of the Charles Dickens' famous opening of the Tale of Two Cities. It was a spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. We have everything before us. We had nothing before us. We were all going direct to heaven. We were all going direct to other way. Regarding China's problems, I agree with the later view that China does currently face serious challenges. But as to the future of China, I'm confident that China will continue to surprise the world with her successful transformation into a modern society. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Qin Xiao. The party Congress said we should have an agenda for reform and a timetable for reform. This was the first time I heard this from the Central Committee. And now Dr. Qin Xiao gave us not just an agenda, but also timetable, very detailed timetable and agenda. I bet there are many questions from the floor. Let's open up, okay. Yeah.
Thanks. Hello, John Cantwell from Rutgers Business School. Thank you very much for that interesting discussion. I particularly like your idea that China would need now to go through a new phase of economic growth, shifting much more the emphasis towards technological innovation. As Professor Lin remarked this morning, the transformation in the world economy would largely depended on a huge increase in innovation after the Industrial Revolution. And I'd like to ask about one particular factor that I think underpins some of what you were saying, which would be at a more microeconomic level, at the level of firms, enterprises, and capability building. Because to shift the model towards more emphasis on innovation, you need capability building within firms, within individual enterprises. So this, in some sense, I think, touches on your point of a change in government-business relationships. Certainly, if we look at the high-growth economies that Dr. Lin mentioned this morning, such as Japan or Korea, it was very noticeable that the Keiretsu in Japan, the chaebols in Korea, other key enterprise groups were responsible for capability development. So in changing the government-business relationship within China, perhaps what one might happen is greater emphasis in return for support on things like investments in innovation, investments, for example, in green technology, environment has been mentioned, and a gradual change perhaps in relationships with foreign-owned firms. One of the earlier questions was about foreign companies and liberalisation and even fair playing field, as it were. What one might do perhaps is to encourage much more relationships for technology licensing and transfer. The Chinese government, I think, has already gone a long way towards this road, but increasing the incentives, especially for foreign firms, to engage as genuine partnerships. This is the end of the question. That's the end of the question. Question is, do you think that this capability building within individual firms should be encouraged?
It's almost a statement rather than a question. There's a lot of many interpretations about middle income trap, but the mainstream, including United Nations, believes that have linked with the social system, which means the social system encourage innovation or doing wrong things. China is on the way to further implement the market-oriented economy. One of the functions of market mechanism is provide incentive for innovation. So that regardless whole nation, individual or firm, they need incentive for them to find innovation. And rule of law is another very important pillar to support their renovation. So the answer is yes. So that's also related to the functions between government and the market.
Okay, start from here.
Frank Bamberger, FB Asset Management. I very much appreciate you mentioned the need for democracy and rule of law. But in any society, people have the power, don't want to give it up. Therefore, do you think if things go reasonably okay, reasonable growth, that there will still be a change toward more represented government and more rule of law, which probably is needed for the long run? So will change happen if things are not in a desperate situation?
Thank you. We all try to do our best to make this process peaceful, regardless it's longer or shorter. The most important is to make the transition peaceful. But it will be decided by a lot of other factors. But in general speaking, we already had a very successful marginal reform in the economic field. So let's provide good experience and confidence, and also provide some credit for our government to conduct the political one in the same way.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm Alan Brewster from the Yale Environment School. I thank you for your great presentation, and I think many of the reforms you're talking about make excellent sense. But most of the discussion relates to the central government making changes as opposed to the changes at the local level. And my experience is that often the incentive system for local government officials does not match that of the national government's priorities. So that in fact, they're evaluated primarily on purely economic growth. And issues of sustainability, issues of social welfare and so forth are not part of the evaluation system which measures the performance of local officials. So do you see any changes in that and ways in which local officials' own self-interest and incentives can be aligned with the central government's interests?
When talking about the democracy, we mean we encourage a system which the government officials being elected through competition and have the accountability. That's made some progress has been made, but it still takes some time to further implement or enforce this trend.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Qin. This is John Espinoza from the Emerging Markets team at TIAA-CREF. I think the presentation was excellent. In terms of highlighting the 12 reforms, which ones do you think will be prioritized in the short term and will face the least amount of resistance from the various interest groups and SOEs, et cetera? Thank you.
Actually, this project for Boyan Foundation, I took the lead of the three of us. We did have about more than 100 pages for our findings and proposals. In the very beginning, we discussed how to start this reform. Someone suggests start from the SOE reform. Someone have other different suggestions, land system, rural land system, which is also very outstanding issues for the urbanization process. But we believe the factor market price, the taxation and the fiscal management, budget issues are most important thing to start with. And they are set of these measures or proposals. You cannot single out one, say that's the first important thing. I think it's reinforce each other. It's a set of the whole package to start up the whole round reform.
Okay, I see a lot of hands over there, but because of time constraint, we have to stop here. But let me propose to you guys to join me to thank Dr. Qin Xiao again for his wonderful speech. Thank you.
I didn't get to ask my question to Qin Xiao, which is when you give this presentation to the leadership, what do they say? Anyway, this is not a reflection of the Chinese leadership's view. So when they see this presentation, do they go, "Oh, 我的天哪"? or do they say, 可以呀?
The draft of our report, we have two versions. One is policy suggestions. One is academic one. The draft has been sent to Xie Fuzhan and Liu He. And in 2 years,
who are senior economic policy makers.
2 days later, both of them tell us the report being sent to the top. We don't know who is top.
Well, then my question was, what day did the report go up? And we would know who the top was.